nice. And the Des Moines Farmers Market, are you guys usually participating in that year round, or is it pretty much during harvest season when you guys are at the Des Moines?
All summer long.
All summer long.
We only go once a month.
Okay.
I know the farmers market's always, we go once a month for that. And this year, it's just twice a month.
Amazing. And you guys have been doing farmers markets for about how long?
I'm not sure. I've only been here for a year. I
Okay.
started last year doing them. I'm sure, I know they've been doing it for several years. They try and go every year.
Okay, awesome. So what unique qualities does your wine or wine business bring to the
Let's see, we provide a place for locals and travelers to relax and unwind and enjoy the company of everybody that they come with, the company of the employees and people around. We also provide a lot of live entertainment at our main Fireside location in Ringo. We have some big summer groups coming out, Saturday nights, we do Friday nights and Sunday afternoon, live music.
Awesome. So the relationship between Ackerman and Fireside Wine, can you talk a little bit about that?
Relationship, well, we're the same owners, so Bill and Lana own both locations. They're a little different as Ackerman does fruit-based wines, and Fireside does grape-based wines. So fruit-based wines are going to be, most of them are going to be sweet, for our wine there. But the grape-based wines, we can do anything from dry to sweet, anything in between.
And would you say that there is a favorite wine on each side of, with Ackerman? Obviously there are the same owners and producers, but is there something with the different labels that's a fan favorite of Ackerman versus Fireside?
Well, like I said, Ackerman is rhubarb is a very good seller. I literally heard Fireside is Willow and Butterfly are some very good sellers. All of our wines are good, and everybody likes it.
That's amazing. And I know a lot of people in our audience are usually interested in the farming practices that different wineries and producers take to. So pretty much I just want to ask you about how would you describe the farming practices that you guys engage in to produce your wine most?
So farming practices are similar as they are for corn and soybean farmers. However, it's very labor intensive. The grapes are pruned by hand, which actually I've been doing the last couple of weeks with the owners. I've been out there pruning those vines. So they're done every spring, and they're treated for insects and disease more often than the regular row crops. And we were fortunate enough to purchase a harvester for the grapes in 2018. Prior to then, all grapes were picked by hand, which obviously takes a long time to do. But this allowed us to grow the vineyards to 20 acres.
So when you were doing them by hand, would it be large groups out trying to get it all done, or how exactly did that
I
work?
would assume it would be. I was not around at that time, but there's a lot of vineyards out there, a lot of rows of grapes. We have grapes in 50 plant rows and 75 plant rows right now, so take that over 20 acres, that's a lot of
I'd say
a
so.
lot of plants, so picking all the grapes out of that would take quite a bit of help and involvement from a lot of people.
That's awesome. It's always good to have community. I think one of the big things for We Rose is being able to engage the community and allow them to participate in some of the urban farming practices that we embark on. So good to hear that is very similar with your operation. Another question I have for you is, where can community members find your product? And are there other ways community members can support Fireside?
Okay, so we work with about 125 plus retailers across the state. If you're curious about it, you can log on to fireside.com or winery.com and find out that we are in a lot of IBs and some local grocery stores. I know we have one of our ones in Costco, so we have them all over the place, and we can ship to like 43 different states around the country.
Okay. Awesome. So we are going to turn it over to the audience and see if we might have time for one question, maybe. One or two, if anyone in the audience has any questions. If not, okay, but if anyone has any questions for Mary, please feel free.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what made you want to kind of like start your professional journey with wine? Repeat the question just for.
So the question was asked, what made you want to start your professional journey in wine?
Well, I like drinking wine, Fireside Winery and Ackerman Winery, but it's a family business, and they are very good to work with, very good to work for. They're involved in everything we do, so it's just a fun venture, Fireside. It's like a family, so it's very welcoming, and we have a lot of people that you just recognize upon coming in because
Okay, that's awesome. Well, would everyone give a round of applause to Mary for her participating in Wine Down with Quan? Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Quick question. Did the other microphone, is it not a possibility or is it?
It is a possibility.
Okay.
We'll use that next.
Okay.
So next up, first let me check.
Quarter after. Yep.
Here we'd like to introduce Scott Patton with Eagles Landing Winery. Eagles Landing Winery was started by Roger and Connie Halverson in 2000 as a retirement hobby. By 2007, Eagles Landing Winery was entering in many wine competitions. Cindy joined the family business in 2009. 5 years later, Jay and Cindy officially took over Eagles Landing Winery when Jay's parents retired. Since then, Eagles Landing Winery has received over 400 medals and awards, including the coveted Governor's Cup and Best of Show at the 2022 Iowa State Fair for the wine concerts. In 2022, it became Jay and Cindy's turn to retire, and they sold Eagles Landing Winery to Scott and Sharon Patton, a couple from Cedar Rapids. Scott and Sharon are excited to join the winery family and continue the legacy of excellence, welcome, and fun.
I'm doing well.
Yeah, this is great.
Okay, great. I have a pretty loud voice, so
It's better than.
Let's see if it's
Yeah.
let's see. Oh yeah, we're on.
I think so. Yeah, pretty good.
Excellent.
So, Scott, I want to thank you first and foremost for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And we'll start by you introducing yourself and your role.
Okay, sure. So as Quan mentioned, my name is Scott Patton. I'm the new owner, along with my wife, of Eagles Landing in Marquette. We've been running the business for all of 4 months now. So we're learning a lot. I think we're on our feet and things are going pretty well. My background is actually in aerospace, electrical and systems engineering. So it's a pretty big shift to get into wineries. But I made a lot of beer in the past, and so it's not too big of a difference. The winery's up in Marquette, very small town, about 400 people. There's, I think, 3 streets in the town, maybe 1 or 2 more than that. It's a great place. It's beautiful in the fall. We just love having so many people in the winery and the tasting room on a day-to-day basis.
That's amazing. Awesome. So, kind of touched on this a little bit, but it kind of leads me to my first question. What inspired you to be involved in the winery?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. As I mentioned, so engineering is a very different pursuit than winemaking, and it's a lot more kind of science without a little bit of art. And you can find a lot of careers that have a lot of art without a little science. But I think winemaking is a great combination of being able to develop something that a lot of people enjoy and something that's still got a lot of science behind it. You got to know what you're doing when you're mixing different parts of the wine together.
Have you ran into any challenges that come to mind when you talk about the process of the science behind producing wine?
Well, I've done a lot of reading to make sure that I knew exactly what I was doing, because when you're brewing beer, making wine at home, you ruin a 5-gallon batch. Okay, that's not a big deal. When you're working with 200, 500-gallon batches, it's a much bigger deal. You want to make sure you do everything right and you write down exactly what you did. So no mistakes yet that I'm aware of. So.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, I think a lot of people would maybe come to you for some advice if you had that much success in a short period of time. So what advice would you offer someone looking to start a winery, maybe buy a winery like you did, just getting their feet in the wine industry? What advice would you give?
Yeah, well, so buying the winery was a great option because when you start one from scratch, you got a long time without a lot of income. You really, you're making it day to day. We were able to buy the winery, an operation that's been successful for 20 years, and kind of hit the ground running. Now, when we did that, we made sure we had developed a good relationship with the prior owners. So that was important, making sure that we could rely on them to help us learn everything. And then the other thing that I would say is kind of try to blend your passion with what other people are interested in. Like, you may love, a great tawny port, but there may be, 20 people in the city that want to buy a tawny port. So you got to find what people love and what you're interested in making, and then you kind of find that intersection there.
And the previous owners that you bought the winery from, do they still serve as a resource for you today?
Very much so, yeah. They've been there, a couple days a week for this first 3 months, and now that part of the contract is changing, and so they're going to be more of an on-call. But it's been very important to have a good relationship.
Could you pinpoint one or two things that you had to rely on heavily as you went through that transition?
Yeah, easily. So we live in Cedar Rapids, and the winery's in Marquette, so that's about 2 hours. And so I split my time half there and half here, and so I might get a delivery on Monday, and the shipping companies aren't all that interested in changing their routes and their days for a small company like us. So just having him there to help perceive stuff has been really helpful.
So you guys produce a lot of great wine. I'm guessing that you might have a favorite food and wine pairing, if you do, what would it be?
Oh gosh, so I'm a really bad person to ask that question. I like a lot of wine and a lot of food. I tend to like the drier reds, which are not our big sellers, but I'm really developing a new like for our white wines too. So I've been stuck in the red world for so long. Now, if I was to go for a great dinner, I'd probably grab, kind of a clean white and a ribeye. I think that'd be a great dinner.
I'm with you on that. A standing question that we're going to have for these interviews is, where can communities find your product, and other ways communities can support you?
Sure. We sell our wines in about 200 locations across Iowa and Wisconsin. So you can always find out where those are by going onto the webpage. And then I think, we try to make the winery kind of an experience. So coming by, just checking out the winery. If you don't know much about wine, try a bunch of different stuff. Come by, meet us, and I really love the aspect of we're developing food that we can sell in the winery and working with communities, small businesses in the community. So we're working with a bunch of different people to bring in cheese curds from dairies and lots of things that people can try while they're
Nice. So, do you guys offer tours and just visitors to come out to the winery?
Anybody can come out. We're kind of in an old building. Marquette's kind of an old town, so it doesn't make the most scenic tour inside the winery. But come see the winery, listen to the music, and then look at the scenery outside.
And I got a random question for you that just came to my mind. I think you would be a great person to ask this. How can you tell a good wine from a bad wine? Meaning if it was something flawed with the production process?
Yeah, sure. So the nose is so important. I would not have expected that, until I started studying it. But you can pick up a lot of off flavors with this. Make sure that you swirl the wine. That sounds kind of snobbish, right? Like you gotta swirl the wine. That sounds like I'm from a California winery, and you'll just smell so much, and that'll tell you how the wine's been treated, really.
Well, thank you, Scott. We're going to turn it over to the audience and see if anyone has any questions for Scott before he takes off.
Yes, sir.
You kind of alluded to it earlier, but just curious, in your tasting room and overall, do you find your drier wines or your sweeter wines are more popular with?
Yeah, it's interesting because I love the drier wines, but when somebody comes in that loves dry wines, they usually buy a bottle. When somebody that comes in and loves sweeter wines, they usually buy a case. I don't know why that is. That's just how it is.
I have a quick question, and you might have addressed it when I was, I might have missed it, but are all of the wines that you currently have the same as what they had, the same recipes? Have you added any or taken any away, or are you planning to do that?
Great question. So our first new wine release is going to be a mango wine in May, and so that is going to be developed by Sharon and myself.
Nice.
Kind of on our own, so.
Nice.
We'll see how that goes. It's too early to tell.
Anyone else? All right, well, let's give a round of applause for yourself.
Thanks, sir.
Jess, how are we doing on time?
We're doing pretty good. It's 4:24.
Awesome. Okay, so we have our next guest, last but certainly not least, we have Mark Westbrook with Fireside. From Winery, Iowa, but the organization or the business is Cider. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. Cheers. All right. Close connection.
We're brand new.
So Cider is a sister company of Sosa's Farm. Sosa's Farm, also based out of Winery, Iowa, had its first growing season in 2018, and business has continued to grow and evolve ever since. Part of that evolution is Cider, a new cidery which will also be based in Winery, Iowa. Cider is dedicated to making modern hard ciders using only whole natural ingredients. They are very excited about this next step. Right now, they are busy with building construction, planting apple trees, and perfecting their cider recipes. Today, Mark is here to give us some insight on all that's happening with Fireside. So let's give a quick welcome. So Mark, how are you?
Doing great.
Doing pretty well. Awesome. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Like the rest of the guests who are here, we'll start with you introducing yourself and your. Is it right to say cider?
Yeah. Cider is the right term.
You have to look that up. So you can introduce yourself and Fireside, that'd be great.
Sure. So I'm Mark Westbrook, and along with my wife Teresa, I'm the owner of Cider, and I'm the cider maker, and cheap bottle washer. You want me to say a little bit more about
Yeah.
So I won't go too far back in history, but we basically decided to start the business of Cider about almost 2 years ago now. We've been working on it since then, and we just broke ground on our production building at our farm a few weeks ago. So we are hoping to have our first cider available for sale this summer.
So can you share some of the differences and maybe similarities as well between cider and wine?
Yeah, that's a good question. Cider is generally grouped with wine because it's a fermented fruit juice, just like wine, fermented grape juice, fermented apple juice. Similar to wine, you have a wide spectrum of styles, from bone dry to very sweet. We tend to lean towards the drier ciders, but we know that there's a large range of preferences out there, so we do make some sweeter ciders too. But more of the ciders that we make are on the dry side. Let's see, what other? I think I don't know a lot about wine, but I know like a good red wine you want to age for a period. Well, there's some cider styles that do well with aging, other cider styles that are better drank pretty fresh. So that's kind of similar. I think maybe white wines are more consumed more fresh than red wines?
I would say so. I'm very limited in knowledge as well. So like I mentioned in the beginning, this is all an educational process for us all. But I think you're correct on that.
Yeah, and also similar to wine, ciders can be still, like a lot of wines, or they can be sparkling. Most people, when they think of cider, think of carbonated ciders, but there are still ciders out there as well. At least in the beginning, all of the ciders we'll be selling will be carbonated. But we use, when we're making our wine, our fermenters, we use wine fermenters, and then transferring to bright tanks where we carbonate. So that's some equipment from the beer world, some equipment from the wine world.
So we'll kind of keep it light here before we dig into some of the other questions. But favorite food in maybe wine pairing or cider pairing, if you could think of something.
Yeah. So cider goes with everything, really, of course. One that I like, we also, so Solstice Farm, one of the things we do is pasture-raised poultry, so we eat a fair bit of chicken in our house, and I really like kimchi braised chicken thighs with a good dry cider.
So being that you are new to this industry, what's one thing that surprised you since having to go through all of the hoops and do what you need to do to basically make the cider come to life?
Yeah. So one thing that has surprised me is the welcoming nature of other cider makers, especially other cider makers in Iowa who, our ciders will be on the shelves next to you, and, it could be considered competitors, but we were fortunate enough to go to CiderCon, which was the big cider conference in Chicago a couple of months ago. We met some other Iowa cider makers, and they were very welcoming, encouraging, offered to, be available for advice and that kind of thing. I didn't consider it really like big competition at all, and I'll just shout out a couple of them that spent some time with Wilson's Orchard, which is down in Solon, and also Jeffco, Jefferson County Cider Works, down in Fairfield.
So as we know, obviously there's alcohol involved in this. So in terms of we know that the guidelines and regulations surrounding wineries, is the state or is at the federal level, do they consider you a winery, or is it something totally different?
It gets a little complicated. It's pretty straightforward with the federal government. We are considered a winery, which seems like as it should be because we're fermenting fruit juice, like I said before. The state of Iowa makes a seemingly arbitrary distinction. If your cider is less than 6.25% alcohol, they consider it beer. If you're more than 6.25% alcohol, they consider it a wine. So in the eyes of the state of Iowa, we are both a winery and a brewery. Because some of our cider can be lower alcohol, and some will be higher. So there you go. So then the rules get complicated too, because, for example, when we started our business plan, we assumed that we would be able to sell our cider at farmers markets because we see wine makers selling their wine at farmers markets. But you are allowed to sell wine at farmers markets, you're not allowed to sell beer at farmers markets. So, again, complicated.
Good to know. So your plan, so since, and I know you've been a farmer market vendor for quite some time, and being that that's probably not going to be enough for you now, so probably ever, what are the distribution plans for cider?
Yep, so first off, we will be pouring samples of our cider at the Cedar Falls Farmers Market, and maybe occasionally at the College Hill Farmers Market, and maybe some others around. So we're allowed to pour samples. We're just gonna sell it. So then you'll have to taste it, see how delicious it is at the farmers market, and then go to a grocery store, liquor store, or bar or restaurant. So we can't. We're early enough that I can't tell you specific locations where you'll be able to buy it, but yes, but definitely at grocery stores, liquor stores, bars and restaurants in Waverly, Cedar Falls, Waterloo. Starting out, that's going to be kind of our core region starting out, and we'll expand from there. Starting with Eastern Iowa, see how far we get.
In terms of the apple that you use, do you guys use a bunch of different varieties to produce the cider, or are there some very specific ones that you are just leaning towards for cider?
Yeah, so we have a young orchard at our place, which is kind of what got us started down this path. But we don't, our trees are young, like I said, and we don't have nearly enough land to grow enough apples to make as much cider as we'll need to make. So cider can be made from really any apples as long as you blend certain characteristics. You need to have enough acidity in it. So you can use culinary apples for making cider, but you gotta make sure you have some tart ones in there with it. To make really great old world cider, you need specific apple varieties like bitter sweets and bitter sharps. And so we're planting those types of trees because you can't access those in the marketplace as much as you can other apples. So yeah, you can make them out of a wide variety, but there are certain apples that are considered cider apples. And a lot of those also have the nickname of spitters, because if you were to bite into one, you would spit it out because it doesn't taste good to eat it, but you may press the juice out and then ferment it, and it's delicious.
Something new every day, I didn't know that. So, final question, where can community members find your product? Well, we talked about that a little bit, but I guess the bigger question would be, are there other ways community members can support cider as you guys start to launch and take over the world?
That's a good question. You can please follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and you can kind of see where we're at and know when we're going to start having product available. Come say hi at Farmers Market, the Cedar Falls Farmers Market. We'll have some, I'm pretty excited about our new logo that we're about to introduce, and so we'll have some merch before we have actual cider to sell you. We'll have shirts and stickers and things. So yeah,
We all need good merch, right?
yeah.
So we'll turn it over to the audience and see if there's any questions for them.
Possibly.
I have a question.
I'm ready to put your name, to put your name in Facebook, so I'm gonna do that.
At Haha Cider. P-A-H-A.
P-A-H-A, cider.
We got a question over here from Jess.
So you said something about a building construction. Are you going, and you may have addressed this, but I missed it. Are you going to have like a tasting room and like that kind of thing, or is it just specifically for production?
We will not. It will just be production. We considered, we looked to see if we could find a good space in Waverly that we could do production and have a tap room in the same space, and there just wasn't really anything. And our farm is just not really set up well to have a tasting room there, so it would just be a production facility. And then maybe at some point in the future, perhaps we open a tap room.
Yeah. And then I had another one. You talked about how with Iowa the distinction is you're both. So, and then at farmers markets you can't bring beer, but can you bring the ones that actually technically qualify under wine?
We can.
Ah, okay.
Yes, but it'll be fewer offerings that are the higher alcohol. Most of our ciders will be around 6% alcohol. But yeah, we probably will have some options that are a little higher alcohol that we can sell.
Nice.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Awesome. Let's give a round of applause to Mark. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I just liked your Facebook, so
Awesome.
I'm watching my Facebook posts to find out when and where I can buy it.
Nice.
Ciders and how you have it.
It's 37, 437.
Thank you.
All right, so this last segment here, we're going to, if everyone's paying attention, you'll have a chance to win some wine. We have some trivia questions, and I'm going to start with the first one. And if you know the answer to it, just raise your hand or blurt it out. Doesn't matter to me. Okay.
She's on the edge of her seat.
In what year did Ackerman Winery begin producing fruit and grape wines in the American colonies? Are you ready here for that?
No, you weren't. Yeah.
1975. Is it?
think you are correct. You are correct. Alright, so you may come up here and grab one, or you can wait to the end, whichever one works best for you.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
And the answer was.
Well, what if somebody grabs the next one, grabs one that you want? I guess you have first choice. How about we do
Okay,
that?
let's
Yeah,
do
do
that.
that.
Roll good.
Yeah,
Were you gonna say
yeah.
yes?
I was just for the recording. What was the answer?
Oh, the answer, the question again, I'll repeat the question. In what year did Ackerman Winery begin producing fruit and grape wines in the Atlantic colonies? And the answer was 1956. All right, next up. What coveted award did Eagles Landing Winery win for the wine Constance at the 2022 Iowa State Fair?
The governor's award. The governor's award.
That, you got it. Did you say that first?
Yeah.
Okay, you got it. The answer to that was the governor's award. I think there's an official name. I'm gonna look it up quick just so I can tell the audience as well. So Governor's Cup is best of show. Okay. Let's see here. We got one left. What's the name of the sister company of Cider owned by Mark and Teresa
Sister company.
You're almost there.
Still, I heard it.
There's one in the winter and one in the summer.
I don't pay attention, come on.
The longest day of the year.
We got another.
If I get it, she can have it.
Okay.
Is it Solstice Farm?
You got it. The answer was Solstice Farm.
I do so. No, thank you, I love you. You're my best friend.
So, that pretty much concludes this Wind Down with Quan podcast. But I want to give a huge shout out to Cider and Smokestacks for putting on this event. The IowaEats Food and Drink Festival was an amazing turnout. We were vendors here. We have a couple of our partner organizations who were vendors here, and everyone had nothing but great things to say. So if we give a quick round of applause to Cider and Smokestacks for putting on this event, that would be great. And I'm sure Jessica has something else for me, so where do we go?
Well, I'm just thinking, because there were a few late arrivers, that maybe you could explain how people can find more of these and what your organization is.
Yep, so for those who didn't catch the beginning, my name is Quan Campbell. I'm the founding farmer of Winery. We are a network of local producers. Collectively, we have about 20 acres of land dedicated to fresh fruit and vegetable production. Our mission is to elevate urban farming cooperation, increase access to local and affordable healthy food options. One of our primary programs is called Greens to Go. We pretty much distribute all of our food through that program. We have weekly roadside stands, May through October. We set up at the downtown Winery Farmers Market. We offer a home delivery program, and we also have an online ordering site as well. So if you guys walked around the event today, you saw that we were selling microgreens, which is a new endeavor for us. And the connection to all of that in this podcast is basically me just kind of taking some of those professional hats off and showing a different side of me and sharing my love for wine with all of you. And if you want to kind of tap in a little bit more about what's going to be coming down the pipe for Wind Down with Quan, I would encourage you to follow us at Winery on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and we will allow the winners to select the wine that they need. So, thank you.
What's his name? Quan. Give me a little quick smile right there, man. I got you. 1, 2, 3. Awesome.
Great job.
Thanks.
I like getting
How's the bike shop? You guys getting busy this time of year?
Yes, definitely.
My bike again. I need a bike.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Hopefully, so our favorite place is Basil Pizza. So hopefully you will have your.
They're high on my list.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Okay. Good. I'm sure that he will be.
Probably our favorite restaurant.
Yeah. 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 And they definitely, he supports, I'm sure would love to have it, but I'm like, I want to have some. Yeah, thanks.
Oh, the winners.
Only the winners. IowaEats Festival is the hashtag they're using.
Do you guys have many kids' bikes in stock right now?
We do.
24 inches.
All right, winners, let's get in there.
You know what? That is the one that I think, I'm not sure if we have, we have like 16 and 18, and, but I don't know if we have 24. But we did just,
You're on that side?
have somebody come in and ask about them, and I think that he looked to see, and there are some in stock, so we can. Yeah.
Do the full extension. I like it. Everybody tighten it down.
Outgrow.
Oh, I love that one too. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
1,
Yeah,
2,
that
3.
happens.
Stay with me. Hold on. Perfect. One more. Have fun. Get crazy with one. Here we go. 1, 2. Hey. You got it. Thank you. Thank you.
That will be put on it, and all the students at school will see it. Oh, yeah, we know Mrs. Bowden drinks. You know it already. You drive me there.
Where do you teach?
Well, I'm a substitute teacher, but I